3 years into my marriage, I deliberately uncovered chat logs between my husband and another woman. Listen to Isabel. I'll get rid of the baby, and you come back home. Later, the private detective I hired told me the woman also had a husband. So, late one night, I found the man. Hello, your wife is pregnant with my husband's child. What do you think we should do now? The man scoffed, joking. Why don't you get pregnant with mine then? I saw Ethan off as usual, but just a few seconds later, he pushed the door open again and pulled me into his arms. I really don't want to go to the office. I just want to stay with my wife then. A kiss landed on my forehead after left. The smile on my face faded. Inside the coffee shop, the detective pushed an envelope across the table to me because I needed the information urgently. He only had the woman's basic details, but it was enough. Her name was Isabel, and she was 3 years older than Ethan in the photo. She wore a low ponytail, looking gentle and poised, draped in a white shawl over a black velvet gown. Every gesture and smile exuded charm. Their lower bodies were very close together. The detective saw me staring, lost in thought, and awkwardly said, Isabel has a husband too. Could there be a mistake? The child in her belly might not be your husband's. I was about to speak when Ethan called me. Gracie, you said you didn't sleep well last night, so I got up early to make you some comforting chicken broth. I even added soothing herbs for peace of mind. It should be almost ready by now. Drink more after you wash up, and don't overwork yourself at home. Over the phone, his voice was gentle, full of concern for me, like a mother hen. Who would have thought that Mr. Ethan, so cold and arrogant in the business world, would roll up his sleeves and prepare a meal just because his wife said she couldn't sleep? But all I wanted was to curse him out over the phone. I wanted to ask him how he could get another woman pregnant and still show such affection towards me. His wife, a week ago, was our 3rd wedding anniversary. To celebrate, Ethan left work early, and I even put on perfume. But that night, he wasn't in high spirits. Perhaps it was a woman's sixth sense. I could feel him trying desperately to set the mood, but he just couldn't get into it. I asked him, are you too tired from work lately? His eyes were tender as he leaned in and kissed my lips. No matter how tired I am, I still have to fulfill my marital duties for my wife. A few minutes later, looking at the ultra-thin 0.33 in my hand, should we just not use it? At my words, a fleeting discomfort flickered in Ethan's eyes. It was so quick that it vanished before I could investigate. Afterward, the hot sweat turned cold, sticking to my body. I lay in bed, breathing softly, my eyes wide open in the darkness. Ethan tonight felt a little strange. It was as if he was deliberately trying to please me, as if he was trying to make amends for doing something wrong. Something flashed in my mind. I've always been a person of action. I picked up Ethan's phone from the nightstand. He must have been truly exhausted. He didn't even wake up when I pressed his finger to unlock it. Without surprise, I was lucky. It took me less than 3 minutes from noticing something was off to discovering Ethan's secret. I held the phone, trembling, as I looked at their chat logs. Give me money. Why? I'm getting an abortion. The person on the other end of the message carried a hint of arrogance and entitlement. After we got married, Ethan suggested being child-free, but I wasn't entirely on board, and we hadn't come to an agreement, so we were especially careful about pregnancy. I suddenly understood the discomfort in his eyes tonight when I asked if he wanted to use protection. Scrolling further back, the messages spanned over a year. The other person called Ethan little brother. As the eldest child in his family, this was probably the first time anyone had addressed him that way, so he clearly enjoyed it. Ethan followed Isabel around like a puppy, calling her Isabel. Slowly, they developed feelings and crossed the line. Isabel, what perfume did you wear today? My heart just skipped a beat. I wore it just for you. Yang Yang. I opened Isabel's social media posts. Little brothers are the best. They really put effort into pleasing you. Accidentally bit my little brother's lip, but he ended up feeling sorry for me and brought me some soup from home. Delicious memories began to flood back. A week ago, Ethan went on a business trip and came back with a cut lip. He told me Riverdale was too dry and made him inflamed, so I woke up early to make him a soothing remedy. Their last messages showed Isabel telling him to go back to his family. Listen to Isabel. I'll get rid of the baby, and you go back home. What we had was wrong from the start. Let's never see each other again. No, I won't allow it. I absolutely won't allow it. You can't leave my world. Even through text, I could feel Ethan's fervent and agitated emotions, and the fear of losing someone he loved. My knuckles holding the phone turned white. I was consumed by anger and betrayal, my chest burning as if doused in oil and set alight. I wanted to scream, to shout, to smash the phone against Ethan's face. I wanted to ask him hysterically, but a string of reason firmly held me back. At least, not now. Perhaps my suppressed voice was too obvious, as the sleeping man suddenly woke and looked at me. Gracie, what's wrong? In the dim room, only a faint light from the phone illuminated my face. I calmly replied, nothing, just can't sleep. I was thankful for my expressionless face at that moment. I casually put the phone aside. It seems I'm a negligent husband for not tiring you out. He looked at me with tender eyes, gently pulling me into his arms, just like when we were dating. But a few seconds later, I heard his heavy breathing again. Ethan had always been passionate. After graduation, his startup grew bigger and bigger. And in recent years, the company's profitability soared. But the higher he climbed, the greater the pressure. Gradually, his demands for me at night also increased. Sometimes, he would even make me cry. Our first meeting was at the school's freshman orientation party. The moment he saw me, his pupils trembled, and his earlobes flushed red. When he spoke to me, he was so shy he could only stare at his shoelaces, stammering every word. People around us tease, is our campus heartthrob smitten at first sight? Indeed, throughout college, he pursued me relentlessly. Ethan loved me, and I loved him too. But it was precisely because I loved him so much that I could immediately tell when he changed his heart. On the way home, the scenery outside the window blurred past. The detective called me again. I'm sorry, Ms. Grace, there was incorrect information. I just found out that Isabel and your husband seem to have known each other for a long time. At that, my breath hitched. How long? About 3 years, the detective said, sending me the newly received message. The photo clearly showed a youthful Ethan from his senior year. He was wearing a suit, his usually indifferent face alight with intense emotion, fiercely embracing and kissing Isabel. The car's heater was on full blast, yet I felt as if I were in an ice cave. Sunlight streamed through the window, hitting me, and still I shivered with cold. That year, during my senior year, we had a small argument, and I broke up with him. I didn't tell anyone and returned alone to the Midwest. Ethan was in the early stages of his startup. He dropped everything overnight and went to my hometown. When I arrived home, I saw him standing in the biting cold of the Midwest, wearing a suit and tie, trembling. At his feet lay a scattering of extinguished cigarette butts. The moment he saw me, he lunged forward and embraced me, his voice trembling as he said, Gracie, let's not break up, okay? If you don't like long distance, I'll develop my company where you live. I'll even move the company to the Midwest. After saying that, he fainted from the cold. A neighbor said he had been waiting at the entrance of my neighborhood since 7 in the morning. Nearby vendors told him to wait inside, but he refused, saying he was afraid of missing me. He ended up with pneumonia in the hospital and almost died. I was heartbroken and angry at the same time, asking if he regretted it, but he smiled and said he would rather die than miss me. Ethan chose me again and again, so I chose to marry him and move far away, from the Midwest to the East, spanning over 1,000 kilometers. But now I was being told that he had already been involved with Isabel since he first begged me to stay, until a week ago. I thought it was just the 7-year itch, miss. Are you all right? The taxi driver looked at me with concern in the rearview mirror. It was then that I realized I was already in tears. I looked out the window and said calmly, nothing, just cried watching a movie. The detective said nervously, I'm sorry, Ms. Grace, we had to investigate quickly, so the information isn't comprehensive. Besides, this is a society of laws. We can't just go into hotels to check surveillance. This is all we could find. I gave a bitter smile, indicating my understanding. Then transferred the 100,000 I had prepared. He accepted the cash gift and kindly revealed another piece of information to me. I glanced at it and immediately told the driver to turn around and go to Metropolitan. It was the address of Isabel's husband's company. After explaining my purpose, the assistant led me to an office. Taking advantage of the wait, I also learned about Julian's background. He graduated from Cambridge University in England, worked at Goldman for a few years after graduation, and took over his family company at 28. Upon taking over, the company's efficiency doubled, making him a truly capable rich second generation. A few minutes later, a man walked in. He wore gold-rimmed glasses, his black hair slicked back with gel, revealing a handsome forehead. His tie was loosely knotted around his neck, and his long legs were casually crossed. The moment he entered the office, the person behind him respectfully took his coat. I turned my head and met a pair of slender, foxy eyes. A strange feeling inexplicably flickered in my heart. His beauty was highly aggressive, but his eyes gave off a feeling of being frivolous and disloyal. Perhaps this was why Isabel cheated. "Hello, I'm Julian." He introduced himself first, then sat across from me and directly stated, "My assistant said you're here about my wife." "Yes," I spoke bluntly. "Your wife is pregnant with my husband's child." "Impossible." Julian immediately denied, leaning back in his chair, unhurriedly saying, "Ms. Grace probably doesn't know, but my wife is a Buddhist. She has a compassionate heart, is benevolent and charitable. She wouldn't even step on an ant on the road. There's no way she would do anything to break up someone else's family, really?" I did not commit, raising my eyes to look at him. The setting sun, streaming through the gaps in the blinds, spilled onto his shoulders, as if agitated. His chest rose and fell. Julian smirked. "Yes. And she volunteers at the orphanage on the 15th of every month and donates to international women's and children's organizations every year. Her moral standards are high. She wouldn't hurt another woman for her own selfish desires." I frowned. Julian's eyes were calm as he spoke, but I clearly saw a clue in his tightly clenched right hand on the table. "Mr. Julian, have you been abroad these past few months?" As I spoke, I pulled a prenatal checkup report from my bag. Julian had been expanding his new company in the United for the past 2 years and only returned to China a month ago. The couple had spent little time together and had been separated for years. Yet, Isabel's prenatal checkup report showed she was 3 months pregnant. Julian's eyes stared intently at the report, his gaze dark and unreadable. My objective achieved. I stood up, preparing to leave, but he suddenly stopped me, joking. "Ms. Grace, my wife is pregnant with your husband's child. How about you cheat with her husband?" I turned back, incredulous. Julian smirked, his foxy eyes smiling, glinting with clear calculation. "Right? How could someone like this be easy to deal with?" 3 days later, I went to the largest orphanage in the city. Many young people were there volunteering. Isabel stood out among them. She wore a luxurious mink coat, surrounded by a circle of children. She was washing the hand of a boy who had just fallen in the snow. The boy's clothes had a tear, and the wind made him shiver, causing him to burrow into Isabel's coat. His small hand grabbed, leaving a dirty black handprint on her clothes. She didn't mind her stained coat at all, instead gently coaxing him. A little girl ran over and said she found a stray dog frozen to death behind the building. Isabel immediately ran over, wrapped the stray dog in her coat, and buried it in the earth. I stood far off, quietly watching her. The woman's features were soft and serene, her hair casually tied in a low bun, her eyes were compassionate, and her hands clasped together as she mourned the little dog. Several young volunteers stood before her and said, "Not only do you donate to the orphanage every year, but you also personally come here to do charity work and volunteer. You're even so kind to animals." Another person echoed, "You don't understand. Isabel is a Buddhist. She has her own faith, so of course she has to do good deeds." Isabel paused at their words, then softly said, "Even if I weren't a Buddhist, I would still do good deeds. People should follow their own hearts, not act for the sake of a belief." Everyone around her praised her kind heart and compassionate spirit after hearing her speech. The child in Isabel's belly will also be blessed. With a mother who does so many good deeds, they will surely grow up safe and sound. At this, Isabel's face flushed with shyness, and her hands unconsciously rested on her belly. Someone teased, "Isabel, will your husband be coming later too?" "Of course," Isabel smiled. "Just like in previous years, he'll be here with me today to celebrate the children's birthdays." My steps forward faltered. Then I retreated behind the building. I checked the date on my phone, a strange feeling flickering in my heart today. My fingers unconsciously dialed Ethan's phone number. The phone rang for barely a second before it was answered. His voice was gentle. "Gracie, what's wrong?" I controlled my emotions and said calmly, "Are you still delivering holiday gifts to clients at this time today? Just like in previous years?" "Yes, why?" Ethan chuckled. "Can you change the time? I'm not feeling well." Usually, if he heard I wasn't feeling well, Ethan would immediately rush home, nervous. But this time, his tone was still gentle, yet he refused. "No, Gracie, you can't forget your roots. My company wouldn't be where it is today without the support of industry veterans back then. I can't just cut ties now that my business is big, even though they might not need these gifts." Maintaining connections and my reputation in the industry is very necessary. Be good. I'll come back to you after I deliver the gifts. After hanging up, I sent a message to Julian. Suddenly, I saw a car pull up to the orphanage gate. The license plate was my birthday. Ethan's car stopped right in front of Isabel. My blood instantly froze. I felt completely unable to move. He took a huge cake and 2 large boxes of toys from the trunk. Then, he took out a string of candied fruit skewers from the passenger seat. One for the grown-ups, one for the kids. Isabel smiled sweetly. The children chirped around him. A large group of people, including the volunteers, entered the building boisterously. I followed them in and stood in a corner of the room. Ethan sat at the head table, a slight smile on his lips, gently pulling Isabel into his embrace. Now that you're pregnant, you shouldn't come here to volunteer anymore. You just don't listen, and you make me worry, the director teased from the side. You know your wife. She has such a compassionate heart. She pities these children. The teasing voices of the young people came through. Mr. Ethan, do you prefer a son or a daughter? I wanted to shout in protest. Ethan didn't like children. Right after we got married, he said he hated kids and decided to be child-free. We were both young back then, and I worried H regret it when he got older, so I never agreed on the matter of children. I looked for cute baby photos online and showed him heartwarming family pictures from a colleague's home, but nothing changed his mind. Ethan sat composed in the center, a faint smile on his lips. I don't have a preference for boys or girls. I like both sons and daughters. Right. You'll love whoever Isabel gives birth to. A group of people laughed heartily, as if joking. I suddenly couldn't take it anymore. The betrayal I witnessed in person was far more intense than what I saw on my phone. The hysteria I had suppressed that night was now unleashed. My mind was filled with anger and a breakdown, leaving no room for reason. I trembled all over, pushing through the crowd and charging straight out. Bitch, you're both bitches. Ethan's smile froze. He stood stunned, his face pale as he looked at me. Trembling slightly, I screamed, grabbing Isabel's hair and clenching it in my hand. A bitch hiding behind a mask to destroy someone else's family, and a cheating scumbag who disgusts me. I slapped Isabel hard across the face twice. Isabel reacted with a sharp scream, her right hand gripping mine tightly. Ethan, help me, please help me. Get this crazy woman out of here. I'm hurting so much. The young people standing nearby tried to push me away, but seeing their movements, seemed to suddenly snap back to reality and punched one of them fiercely in the face. His face contorted in a grimace as he yelled, "Get away, all of you. No one is allowed to hurt my wife." The people who had been ready to righteously take me down now stood frozen, exchanging bewildered glances. They were caught between retreating and advancing. Someone realized what was happening and whispered, "What does he mean? He just said no one can touch his wife, so shouldn't he be hitting that crazy woman? Why is he hitting us? No. Who exactly is Mr. Ethan's wife?" A girl figured it out and quickly blurted out, "It looks like Isabel is the other woman." Suddenly, I slipped. Someone had apparently thrown cream from the cake onto the floor. I conveniently let go of Isabel's hair, lost my balance, and stumbled to the ground. Isabel, no longer supportive, fell into Ethan's arms. I glared at Ethan, my eyes glazing. I'm so sorry, Gracie." Ethan's eyes darted away, his voice hoarse. "She's pregnant. She can't fall." I clutched my stomach, painfully lying on the ground, my right hand sweeping beneath me, feeling a warm liquid trickle out. Someone shrieked, Did she have a miscarriage? Before losing consciousness, I saw Ethan rushing towards me in a panic. When I woke up in the hospital, Ethan sat beside me, dazed, his shoulders slumped. Seeing me awake, his eyes reddened, and he buried his head in my shoulder, weeping. "Gracie, I'm sorry." He hugged me tightly, his voice trembling violently. "We can have another child." I ignored him, pushing his head away and shifting my shoulder. "Ethan, why are you crying? Or rather, what are you pretending to be?" My eyes were cold, and I spoke each word distinctly, hearing the mockery in my voice. Ethan looked at me with sorrow. I rarely behaved so acervically. I had married my first love after college, while others were busy looking for jobs. I was already living the life of a wealthy wife. Those who knew me said I was lucky. I had a harmonious family growing up, received all the love from my parents as an only child, and later had a husband who cherished me. My life had been incredibly smooth. That's why I had always been kind to people and had never used such harsh words towards anyone around me. My hand tightened at my side, and I scoffed, Didn't you already make your choice? When I fell, Ethan was at a loss, desperately trying to calm me, his expression mournful. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were pregnant too. Isabel didn't mean it. She didn't expect you to suddenly rush over and hit her when she became the other woman. Why didn't she expect to be grabbed by the hair and slapped by the wife? Ethan stiffened, his lips pressed tightly. He remained silent, merely apologizing. I looked up at him. When did you meet? A year ago. As if fearing I wouldn't believe him, Ethan knelt on one knee before me, making as if to swear. I only met her a year ago, Gracie, whether you believe it or not. The child in her belly isn't mine. I just had a brief lapse in our marriage. I'll break up with her and return to our family. I gave a sarcastic smile. Then you must really love her, admitting to a child that isn't yours in front of everyone. Silence and suffocation spread between us. Ethan was probably so flustered and confused that he swore without thinking. My words froze him. He leaned back slightly, looking at me with pleading eyes, his voice hoarse. Ill. Make her get rid of the child. I closed my eyes. No, don't. Although I didn't get to be a mother, I've already felt the pain of losing a child. Ethan's eyes instantly filled with guilt and regret. Others' guilt might be useless, but his guilt was incredibly useful to Julian and me. I kicked Ethan out after he stayed there for 2 days. I told him, seeing your face makes me sick and nauseous. If you want me to starve, stay here. He walked away with a stoop, looking back 3 times. I watched his retreating figure, lost in thought. No one knew that before going to the orphanage, I had gone to the hospital for a checkup. I actually had a premonition then. I still remembered the doctor congratulating me. But this child came at an inopportune time, arriving precisely when I didn't need it, so this child had to be aborted. I truly couldn't feel any maternal love for the undeveloped embryo. Moreover, this child would carry Ethan's genes and would have to live inside my womb. Just thinking about it made me nauseous, therefore. I had already planned for the child to die by Isabel's hand before that. At that time, before deciding to act, I had already messaged Julian. He arranged for someone to blend into the crowd. Didn't Isabel care deeply about her reputation for doing good deeds? Ethan's arrival was unexpected, but killing 3 birds with 1 stone, it also saved me from having to maintain a thought of calm. Just like the seabed before a tsunami, when the time comes, the seawater will surge and erupt. No one can remain unaffected. At 3 in the afternoon, I completed my discharge procedures. A nurse asked me, "Why are you alone? Where's your husband?" In the past few days, Ethan had personally taken care of me, and they had witnessed it. I smiled at them, probably busy dealing with his mistress's scandalous news. The nurses looked at me with surprise and awkwardness. Before she could react, I left. I didn't go home but went to the house my parents bought me before my marriage, not long after I got back. The video from the orphanage quickly spread through our mutual friends' social media posts. With influence, it also quickly made it onto the local news. In contemporary society, marital tensions are high, and the story of a wife catching her husband with the other woman, leading to the wife's miscarriage, quickly made headlines. My face was pixelated, while Ethan's and Isabel's faces appeared as if they were high-definition sharpened. Netizens quickly dug up their information. Finally, the wife's face isn't exposed. That's right. The perpetrators should be the ones exposed. That man's company used to partner with us. We're in the same industry. Didn't he often talk about how much he loved his wife? He never let women get close when doing business. I thought he was genuinely in love, but it turns out, TS. Isabel usually liked to post short videos of her spiritual practices and charity work. Now, netizens had dug up problems with that too. The label of the other woman, being at the bottom of social morality, caused her beliefs to be questioned. Oh, for goodness sake, did you consult the Buddha before becoming the other woman? Did the old man Buddha agree? Why does it feel like this woman is putting on a show? Didn't she say she donates to the orphanage every year? Look closely at the children's clothes. They're thin cotton jackets, and some even have holes, and she's wearing such a bulky mink coat while volunteering. It's clearly a show, isn't it? For a while, news of Isabel's charity fraud was completely uncovered by netizens. Some netizens, loving the drama, posted, "The other woman also has a husband, Julian." A few minutes later, Julian posted, "Divorce Ethan." However, daringly made a statement at this critical juncture. "Apologies for taking up public resources. Ms. Isabel and I met a year ago. I was unfaithful in my marriage and did something to wrong my wife. I apologize to my wife here and hope to receive her forgiveness." a year ago. Didn't you already kiss 3 years ago? A netizen posted a photo of the two embracing and kissing outside the university. Ethan's statement was deleted in seconds. The online comments grew even fiercer. Julian sent me a message. How does it feel? Good? As I said, what's the point of just divorcing him? You have to ruin his reputation. I rested my chin on my hand and replied, it feels really good. That day, as I was leaving Julian's office, he stopped me and asked, Ms. Grace, do you know the fastest way to destroy a person? Is it merely throwing evidence of infidelity in his face, divorcing him, and letting him fly away with his mistress? I turned to look at him. Julian leaned on his desk with one hand, idly loosening his tie with the other, a shrewd glint in his eyes. I think you don't understand men. A man is indeed very painful right after a divorce, but that pain won't last long. Time heals everything, and eventually, the man who divorced due to infidelity will take everything you gave up and live happily ever after with his mistress. I looked at his eyes behind his glasses and began to think carefully, then spoke. Reputation, power, status, money, and the pain of losing love. Clearly, losing the first four would be the most painful. So-called love was insignificant compared to those factors, right? Why should I only make him lose love? He should lose everything. To commemorate my overflowing love and a marriage full of lies, Julian snapped his fingers. Smart. So for revenge, well, make them lose everything, little by little. I looked at the cruel smile on his lips and suddenly felt a chill. Someone who could double a company's performance in a year couldn't be a good person. The schemes and deceptions in the business world were far more terrifying than those in marriage. Ethan was now entangled and couldn't escape. Although the company he founded had been doing well and growing in recent years, its strength was nowhere near that of an established conglomerate like Julian's group. Julian's company had successively snatched several projects from him. His reputation as a loving husband, carefully built up, was utterly ruined, and his image as a lying scumbag was firmly established. The wives in my circle who were close to me ordered their husbands not to deal with Ethan anymore. After all, birds of a feather flock together. Who would want to be the one catching the other woman someday? Several industry veterans who had watched us grow together had already begun to withdraw their investments. Outside the window, a bright moon hung high. I stared blankly at the USB drive in my hand. These were confidential company data I had downloaded from Ethan's study computer. He had never been on guard against me. If I sent these to his rival companies, he would never have a chance to recover. Not only that, his company would fall into a huge financial crisis. Did I really have to go this far? Just as I hesitated, my phone vibrated. An unfamiliar user added me and then sent a photo. In the picture, a man's broad palm rested gently on a pregnant woman's belly. The caption read, I didn't want to ruin your family, but you went too far. What if it's immoral? What if my reputation is bad? A person should follow their heart in this life. I recognized the hand. Our wedding ring was still on his ring finger. Instantly, my hesitation and reluctance vanished. How could someone lie again and again? Perhaps always saw me as naive and trusting, which made him so fearless. I immediately forwarded all the data from the USB drive to Julian. Let them battle it out in the business world. I wouldn't get involved in this mess. Seeing no reaction from me, Isabel, like floodgates opening, relentlessly sent me intimate bed photos of the two of them. It was both a provocation and a taunt. I took a deep breath. Idiot, don't you know that what you're sending me is evidence of your marital infidelity? This evidence is enough for me to take a large portion of Ethan's assets and make him suffer a great deal. The next second, Isabel's messages were instantly recalled. I bought a flight ticket back to the Midwest. The reason was that my parents had also seen Ethan on the internet, and they knew the pixelated person was their daughter. On the phone, I couldn't persuade them, so I just decided to go home. Before leaving, I spent 2 days contacting real estate agents to sell the penthouse apartment in the city center at a discount. This house was my premarital property that Ethan had promised me in front of my parents when I moved far away, and it was only in my name. He had even signed a deed of gift agreement at the very beginning. One can only say that hearts change in an instant because of its good location and half price. The house sold quickly. The money in my bank account was enough to achieve financial freedom. On the 3rd day, I had my lawyer mail the drafted divorce agreement to Ethan's company. Winter in the Midwest was much colder than on the East. As soon as I exited the airport, heavy snow fell onto my shoulders. My parents picked me up by car as the holiday season approached. Holiday decorations hung everywhere on the streets, and holiday music played from vendors' shops around our neighborhood. Back home, they tacitly avoided mentioning my situation, only asking what I wanted to eat. That night, I slept soundly in my childhood room. The next morning, I was woken by a phone call. My proxy lawyer told me Ethan refused to divorce. I yawned. All right, then help me sue him. The news hasn't died down yet, and public opinion is on my side. This divorce lawsuit should be easy to win. I saw Ethan again half a month later, because I was home. The new holidays atmosphere at home was exceptionally lively this year. That day, my parents and I went to the supermarket to buy seasonal produce and artisanal sausage. At the neighborhood entrance, we saw Ethan. Time seemed to rewind, just like 3 years ago. Same time, same place. Same man, filled with remorse and utterly haggard. A lot had happened in the past 2 weeks. Ethan's company had been crippled to near bankruptcy by Julian's corporation. Its cash flow had dried up. Salaries were unpaid, and its accounts were frozen by the court. Even his only house had been sold by Grace. Julian was right. This was when someone truly lost everything and began to suffer. He saw Grace, stumbled forward, but was stopped. My dad, a tall man of 6 feet to inches, stood in front of Grace, his voice roaring, "Get out of here while I'm not in the mood to lay a hand on you." After some time apart, Ethan was unshaven, haggard, and emaciated. It seemed Julian had dealt with him quite severely. My mom pulled my dad, suggesting we talk once we were home, at our doorstep. Ethan stood before Grace, his hands clenching and unclenching. Gracie, he looked at Grace, slowly crouched down, until he was on his knees. The snow at the entrance hadn't melted yet, but he knelt directly onto it. "I'm sorry, Gracie, I lied to you. Isabel was actually the girl next door, almost like an older sister to me. When I was little, I was short and got bullied, and she stood up for me. Later, as I grew up, I developed different feelings for her. But then her whole family moved away, and that was the end of it. During my senior year of college, I happened to run into her again. She said she was married but wasn't doing well. Her husband subjected her to emotional abuse. She told me she felt no love in her marriage and even considered ending her life. I couldn't just stand by and watch her kill herself. I kissed her in a moment of emotional intensity, but all I was thinking about at the time was you. That child was just an accident from that one business trip. But just that once, she got pregnant. She said she wanted an abortion, but she kept sending me pictures of her prenatal checkup reports. I softened. After all, the child was innocent. I had planned to wait until she gave birth, then have a child of our own with you. I didn't tell you the truth at the hospital because I was afraid you'd never forgive me if you knew, so I chose to hide it. Gracie, you're the one I've always loved. Isabel was just a youthful dream. I'm here now, and I've also had her terminate the pregnancy. For the sake of all the love we've shared over the years, can we start over?" Ethan's tone was earnest, and his eyes pleaded as he looked at Grace. After a long silence, Grace said coldly, "It doesn't matter anymore, Ethan. Nothing you say now matters. Do you remember what you said at the hospital? You were lying even when you were swearing. Which of your words now are true? You've told so many lies. You've started believing them yourself, haven't you?" Grace couldn't let it go. How could Grace trust someone who was full of lies from the very beginning? There was no trust left between them. Grace was afraid that if she forgave him, she'd feel sick and repulsed every night she thought about it. "Ethan, I looked at your phone on the night of our 3rd anniversary. Hearing's words, Ethan seemed to realize something. His face instantly paled, and his body trembled slightly. Grace continued, "She called you little brother, and you called her Isabel. Every year you'd send gifts to your business partners, but in reality, you were making time to see Isabel and pretend to be an affectionate couple with her in front of everyone. You claimed it was only that one time, but in fact, it was more than once. You kept saying you loved Grace, yet your actions showed you loved her. A person can't have it both ways. Sign the divorce papers and then get out." Ethan left, but not entirely. One morning, Grace opened the window and looked downstairs. There was a car parked in the neighborhood's parking lot. It stayed there 24 hours a day. It had been there for 3 straight days. Grace ignored it and went about her usual routine. That night, Grace was woken up by the knocking of the security guard. "Go check quickly. That young man downstairs seems to have carbon monoxide poisoning from burning charcoal for heat in his car. Take him to the hospital right away." My parents heard this and quickly rushed him to the hospital. It turned out that in the Midwest, where winter temperatures dropped to 20 or 30 degrees below zero, Ethan had been running his car's heater all day, the engine constantly humming. He was now penniless, had no money for gas, and couldn't afford a hotel. To keep warm, he simply bought the cheapest charcoal. The car's interior was small, and even with the window open, he inevitably inhaled a large amount of carbon monoxide. My mom asked if Grace wanted to go. Grace thought about it and decided not to, only asking them to take the divorce papers to the hospital. Will he sign it? He will. They understood each other. If wasn't willing to show up at this point, he should know it was time to let go. Grace was in the kitchen, preparing a bowl of noodles. She had barely taken to bites when Julian sent a message. Have you gotten divorced? Not yet, but soon. Do you want to know what happened to the other person? He asked Grace from the other end of the line. Ever since Grace left, Julian had been giving her real-time updates on both of them. Honestly, Grace was quite grateful. Without his help, Grace would have just divorced Ethan, taken the money, and left, at most damaging his reputation. But bringing a company to bankruptcy and making him unwelcome in the industry was something Grace couldn't have done. Tell me, he chuckled. Your husband told her to get an abortion, but she didn't. She ran away secretly by herself. Grace was puzzled, then reconsidered. Perhaps Isabel was serious about Ethan? Julian scoffed at that. You have to understand, if a woman's reputation is ruined, she'll cling tightly to the last man who's still entangled with her. Clearly, your husband is that man. And the money she used for charity amounted to tens of millions. That was funds from Julian's group meant for public welfare. I originally entrusted her with it, but she donated it to an orphanage under her own name. And what's more, she and the director embezzled and split the money. Those children didn't receive a single penny. I've already filed a lawsuit with the court, so she's even less likely to abort the child now. The next morning, Grace received the divorce papers from her parents. The signature in the designated space was shaky and distorted. My mom sighed. It's a good thing he signed it. Even if he hadn't today, we would have had to fight him in court with all our might. Only then did Grace learn that Ethan's medical attention had been relatively timely. But he had only just barely saved his life. He had inhaled too much carbon monoxide, causing brain damage. When he woke up, half of his body was paralyzed. He would likely spend the rest of his life bedridden. When he woke up and saw Grace wasn't there, he lay in bed, crying heartbrokenly. My mom earnestly advised him, "You're already half paralyzed. Why are you still clinging to our Gracie? If you truly love her, just let go and give her happiness." Ethan was persuaded by her words and shakily signed his name with a pen. Even if Grace didn't want to hear about what happened next, Julian actively kept her updated. Ethan and Isabel's fates had been sealed as soon as Grace and Julian made their agreement. Isabel had been hiding and dodging until she finally gave birth to a boy at full term. As soon as she gave birth, she was summoned to court with irrefutable evidence. She was sentenced to life imprisonment for embezzlement, so shortly after his birth, the child was sent to the largest orphanage in the city. Ethan was taken back by his mother. At first, she could bathe him and help him. But as time went on, she became resentful. She was at an age where she should have been enjoying life, but instead had to care for a half-paralyzed son. In less than half a year, he developed bed sores on his back. On the other end of the phone, Julian kept rambling to Grace about how miserable Ethan was and how much he had deteriorated. Grace grew a bit annoyed listening and asked him, "Are you a company owner with nothing better to do all day, just focusing on your former love rival?" He was momentarily taken aback by Grace's words, then said somewhat awkwardly, "No, not really. I just wanted to ask you, after all this, do you still believe in love?" Grace replied, "Of course. Love is precious and rare. I may not find it, but I believe it definitely exists." Just as Grace finished speaking, a ray of sunlight pierced through the window, shining directly on her face through the curtains. The sky had cleared,